So you want to get into tech sales, and next thing you know, you're learning a new alphabet. SDRs, OBRs, AEs, SEs, PBRs, and there are a million different forms of acronym, jargon, and roles in a sales organization that can be super overwhelming, but are essential to know before you get into tech sales. If I was interviewing you as a VP of sales, if I could tell that someone hadn't even done basic research on how an SDR or an AE work together, I would oftentimes disqualify them early in the interview process. So we're going to build out your tech sales dictionary. Number one, what are the key roles within an organization? Number two, we'll actually walk through what a sale of software looks like. Number three, we're going to go through how compensation is structured briefly. And then lastly, number four, along the way, there are a series of forms of terms and jargon that we will be defining for you so you can come off to a hiring manager as someone who really understands the space. And 3, 2, 1, let's ride. So when people typically refer to tech sales, they're talking about B2B, software as a service sales, or SaaS sales. B2B means that you're typically selling software to businesses. In other words, business to business sales. That is different from B2C, or business to consumer sales, where, for example, an insurance agent might be selling insurance to you. The other piece of it is software as a service, or SaaS sales. SaaS is typically software that is billed on a recurring basis. The best example of B2B SaaS is if you have ever booked a restaurant reservation at OpenTable. All of the restaurants that are on OpenTable are buying SaaS from OpenTable. So that's a basic baseline on what is tech sales. Let's define some of the basic roles in a sales organization. The two most common individual contributor roles are an SDR, or a sales development representative, and an account executive, or an AE. SDRs are oftentimes referred to as SDRs,
sales development representatives, BDRs, business development representatives, OBRs, outbound business representatives, MDRs, market development representatives.
It's all sort of the same stuff. What do those folks do? They're typically focused on opening conversations, reaching out to people who are not customers yet and trying to turn them into customers by taking a meeting with us. An AE will take that meeting that you book and manage these prospects over a series of months and try to close 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 deals that you're sending over to them. The way you can think about career pathing, typically between roles, what you'll see is 12 to 24 months for each role. So if people usually start as a sales development representative, then they get promoted to an account executive, and then you'll start to notice other acronyms within the AE career track. You'll see things like SMB account executive, which is a small medium business account executive. Those folks will go up to commercial or mid-market sales, oftentimes referred to as MM account executive, and those people are closing 5-figure deals versus SMB is usually 4-figure deals. And then from there you have the world of enterprise sales, and that's usually 6-figure deals or 7-figure deals at the top of the top. And then from there, you can also go from being an SDR or an AE vertically in the management chain. You can be an SDR manager, which turns into an SDR director who's managing teams of teams, which turns into sometimes a VP of sales development at really big organizations that's managing a whole sales development organization of 50 plus SDRs and SDR managers, directors, etc. Same thing for account executives is you can go and be a sales manager, which typically means you're managing one team of account executives. Then you can oftentimes be a director of sales, which is managing multiple teams. And then a VP of sales or a CRO, chief revenue officer, is typically managing the entire sales organization. Okay, so let's actually walk through what it means to sell a piece of software step by step. So it starts with prospecting. The SDRs are reaching out to companies or accounts that they want to convert to customers via cold email, cold call, etc. Typically, the first meeting between an AE and a prospect is a discovery call. And a discovery call is a call that is designed strictly for the purpose of understanding, is there a problem that I can solve? Number two, once you finish the discovery call and you've said, these are the 3 problems that I believe we can solve for you, you typically transition to a demo where we will actually demo our software. From there, you oftentimes go from that first demo to what's called multi-threading in sales. In other words, trying to get in front of multiple people in the organization. And so this is a more advanced concept that you can start to use in your interviews to explain that you understand that software sales is typically not decided by one person in the organization, but usually you'll have multiple people in an organization that need to buy off on a $100,000 purchase of a piece of software. And then finally, you typically go through what's called proposal and negotiation. In other words, you've found a problem, you've walked them through the software, multiple people are looking at the software and they say, yeah, this sounds like something that I want to buy. And ultimately, number 4, you need to put a proposal proposal in front of them and negotiate that proposal at a price that is reasonable and fair. There's one other acronym that you'll hear very commonly that's pretty important to know, and that's what's called a CRM, or a customer relationship management platform. And the most common CRMs out there are typically Salesforce or HubSpot. And a CRM is tracking and documenting all of these interactions and meetings with a prospect. Okay, so now let's go into the most fun part of it all, which is probably the reason you're getting into tech sales, because the compensation is pretty good. The most common term in sales compensation that you'll see thrown around is what's called on-target earnings, or OTE. OTE just means if you were to hit your quota, what would your total compensation be at the end of the day? So typically when you hit 100% of your quota, you will make your entire OTE. Your OTE is divided into two portions. Number one, it is your base salary, and let's call that $50,000. Your variable compensation will be parts that are commission based. So let's say, for example, I have a $50K base salary and then I have a $50K variable. My OTE would be $100K. That's the total comp if I hit my quota. Let's say I do 150% of my quota. My base salary would stay at the same $50K, but my $50K variable would actually balloon up to $75,000. So I would bring home $125,000 total. The last piece to define here is what's called ARR, or annual recurring revenue. And ARR is just a fancy way to say what is the annual deal size that your rep is typically bringing in. So if your software as a service or your SaaS contract is being billed at $100,000 per year, that is $100,000 of ARR. And typically account executives are given an ARR quota, and SDRs are usually given a qualified meeting or opportunity quota because they're not the ones closing the deals. They really just need to bring in a certain number of meetings or opportunities for the sales team. Alrighty, folks, so at this point, you should hopefully know, one, what is the role that you're applying to? Two, you know how a basic software sale works. And then three, you learned all about sales compensation, and then all the jargon and acronyms along the way. And naturally, this is only step one of how you need to prepare to get into tech sales. Step two is actually practicing this stuff. And if you like what you saw here, folks, go on, leave a comment in the show notes down here and tell us what other career advice you'd like to see as part of this career advice from a VP of Sales series. All right, cheers.